crypto and Bitcoin right now, about a 37% chance that it will be mentioned on the debate stage.
I'd be very surprised if the candidates are asked and answer thoughtfully on their thoughts on the technology itself or the asset class itself. Likely, former President Trump will say, I'm the pro-crypto president, and I'm very curious what President Biden would say.
Today's show is brought to you by Mezzo, a new home for Bitcoin holders to cultivate Bitcoin and grow wealth together. Use your BTC on Mezzo to unlock real utility and honest yield. Join Bitcoin's first open source economic layer today. Well, perhaps it is the most important election cycle that crypto has ever seen. And it's not just the presidential election we're watching now, as crypto gets debated basically in every corner of Washington, D.C. And for more on where we're at when it comes to crypto and politics, very happy to have on the show with us today Cody Carbone, the Digital Chamber Chief Policy Officer, joining us on CoinEdge. Cody, so good to see you, man.
Yeah, great to be here, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exciting times because, obviously you guys have been front and center and kind of, I think, educating, explaining, advocating for kind of everything that we know crypto to be good for in DC. I'm sure it's got to be exciting for you personally to kind of see how important it's become in almost every election here in 2024. But to start, I guess, kind of your personal take on all of that. Like, what do you make of where we're at right now? How important the debate is now between President Biden, President Trump, people thinking crypto is finally center stage?
We're mainstream. Like, holy cow, we are here. We are on the national stage. I think we're all looking forward to the presidential debate. And I think the expectation is high that crypto will be a question and a topic that is discussed between two candidates for the Oval Office. I think if you asked me several months ago, would we be here? I would have hoped yes and crossed my fingers, but I'd be lying to you if I said, yes, I expected crypto to be discussed between former President Trump and President Biden. But it shows the staying power and the legitimacy of this technology, that this market and this asset class have become something that everyone is interested in. And finally, for years, what the Digital Chamber has been advocating for, every candidate for elected office now has to take a position on crypto, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I wanted to get your take on the debate and kind of what to watch for, because obviously we've seen so much back and forth. And in politics, you're going to have jockeying and kind of, I guess, campaign promises. And no one really knows how true any of those are. I'm looking at Polymarket odds, as you mentioned, kind of this idea of will it be mentioned? I think we followed this pretty closely. Crypto and Bitcoin right now, about a 37% chance that it will be mentioned on the debate stage. And I wonder kind of if there's anything specific you're going to see how educated these candidates are when it comes to crypto versus just saying, hey, look, I'm not against it, because that doesn't really give us much to go off of.
Unfortunately, I think it's likely going to be the latter. I'd be very surprised if the candidates are asked and answer thoughtfully on their thoughts on the technology itself or the asset class itself. I imagine that even if the question is asked by CNN, can you explain to cryptocurrency or digital assets to the American public? I imagine that both of these politicians who have long careers in evading the tough questions will likely circumvent that and say, and I'm likely former President Trump will say, I'm the pro-crypto president, he's against it, and I'm very curious what President Biden would say. I imagine it would look like something as if I'm not against the technology, I'm for U.S. leadership, but I want it to be done safely. I'm hopeful that we'll get them to be more substantive than that, but these debates very rarely are ever that substantive. So I imagine it'll be the latter, exactly what you said, Zach. I'm for it, I'm against it, or vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things. It's just so how much recently seemingly has changed as President Trump has, crowned himself the pro-crypto president, and President Biden, I think, seems to be weighing positions and policies right now. Obviously, you guys kind of have a front row seat to all this, and it's happened, as you said, very quickly. In all of this really coming to the forefront. There was a report from Bitcoin Magazine that President Biden's administration is going to be attending a Bitcoin roundtable with Ro Khanna out of California, which seems to me to indicate that maybe President Biden is starting to capitulate or at least reconsider some of that. So how big of a deal would it be to say that on the debate stage, potentially maybe President Biden has a 180?
It would be a huge deal, and I'm extremely hopeful. Um, President Trump coming out being the pro crypto president was a genius political move, and it was extremely calculated. There's no coincidence that President Trump came out and made that announcement that he is the crypto president the same day that President Biden issued his statement of administration policy saying, hey, I'm going to veto this SAB 121 repeal as it was moving through the House. That was a line in the sand for a lot of the crypto community. And Biden saying, hey, through my actions and through allowing my administration to be very anti crypto, I am anti crypto. President Trump has taken advantage of that. And I think what we've seen in the 6 weeks or the month that was May that feels like a year is that Democrats have said, whoa, 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 let's just not capitulate and let's just not give this issue to Republicans. That doesn't make sense for us. That this is probably going to be part of the fabric of the American financial system for the future. Why are we just giving this to Republicans and giving to Trump? And so we've seen every action, whether it be through Congress or through the administration, since Trump has come out saying I'm pro crypto, trying to find ways to make sure that they are not just binary anti crypto, that they're trying to be more open to the technology, more open to the asset class, and trying to find a way to say, hey, I'm supportive of this. So if President Biden is going to use the debate stage to say, hey, I'm pro crypto, I think we'd all be a little shocked, but I think it would be a great it'd be a great political move. It really would. And you mentioned the roundtable. This is pressure that's being put on the Biden administration from members of Congress who see the potential of this technology, like Ro Khanna, you mentioned, saying, we don't want to give this to Trump. This is going to be an election issue for all of us, whether in the Oval Office or running for Congress or running for your local school board, that we're going to have to answer on for the next, hopefully 100 years. We don't want to just give this to Republicans and make this partisan. It's great to see that.
Yeah, you say school board, and people might be like, "Really, for the school board?" But I've legitimately heard instances of people being in trouble because they couldn't accept crypto donations, and obviously, it's an issue everywhere you go.
I'm under the belief that if you're a candidate for any public office, when you've got a Republican at the top of the ticket, the leader of the party, and you've got a Democrat on the top of the ticket, and this may come at the presidential debate stage, and they're talking about this, you should be prepared to be talking about crypto. Again, whether I know school board might sound a little crazy, but it's true. I bet you this will come up because constituents care about it. I mean, this is something that everyone cares about, and it affects people's wallets. And so it will always come up. So you should care about it and pay attention.
There's a Grayscale report too, kind of looking at how many Americans really have this as part of their portfolio. 47% in terms of American voters indicated that they expect some of their portfolio to include crypto, and as well as when it comes to issues that people care about right now, inflation, far and away among the Republican voters out there, one of the things that they care about. So these are definitely things that are coming up across the board, not just in the presidential election, but as you say, elections everywhere around this country. But to dig into it, Cody, I do think it is, I might be old-fashioned here. I don't necessarily trust politicians and their positions when they're on the campaign trail. I think that's fair skepticism. So I just want to kind of go through a little bit of what we've heard from President Trump on the campaign trail in his road to get to be the pro-crypto president, because you can go back as far as the Fox News kind of town hall that he had with Tim Scott in talking about Bitcoin versus the dollar. We'll play that. And then his most recent clip at the Libertarian Convention about how pro-crypto he really is, just to show this evolution. Take a listen to what he said back in February on Fox News.
More and more I'm seeing people wanting to pay Bitcoin, and you're seeing something that's interesting. So I can live with it one way or the other. I've always liked one really powerful thing, and that's called the dollar.
So he likes the dollar back then. He can live with it either way. But then just a few months go by, and then you hear this at the Libertarian Convention. Of course, obviously, what are you going to say at one of those conventions and maybe be pro-crypto? But here's what he said then.
I will ensure that the future of crypto and the future of Bitcoin will be made in the USA, not driven overseas. I will support the right to self-custody. To the nation's 50 million crypto holders, I say this with your vote. I will keep Elizabeth Warren and her goons away from your Bitcoin.
So that's what we got. And Cody, I ask you this very simple question. Can we trust that President Trump will remain the pro-crypto president if after he's elected?
I'm not naive. And I see that there is clearly a political influence happening here, that President Trump has seen that he's likely going to gain voters from being the pro-crypto president, and he's unlikely to lose voters by being the pro-crypto president. So there's definitely politics at play here. Now, whether you can trust him, I'm looking at the evolution of those statements from January to today as saying, wow, he's got some really good advisors, and he's got some very smart advisors from the crypto industry who are clearly influencing his position. To hear him go in on self-custody, to hear him talk about the potentials of this technology really is something to behold. The fact that he has evolved this quickly, of course, does that make it hard to trust? Yes, but it shows that he's got really good advisors who care about this and are smart on this, and they're moving him forward. And so I think President Trump is sitting here today, and he likely became the pro-crypto president 100% because of politics. 100% because of politics. It's all about gaining votes. But he is seeing the potential of this technology through that education. When more and more of the crypto industry is becoming receptive to him, they're going in, they're talking to him, they're educating him and his staff. I think that's helping change the narrative. And that's what we always want to see with education, that we can start to change people's minds and opinions as it relates to this technology. And I think as soon as he opened his eyes to it, even if it was because it was for political reasons, he is starting to see the benefits of it as well.
Yeah, you're not naive. I'm not naive either. And I think, when you're to your earlier point at the top of the ticket, I think it mightn't be naive to sit there and think that like all of this is just two guys. It's the whole parties right now kind of going back and forth. And you saw that play out with the FIT 21 vote and the repeal of SAB 121 too. It's been active down there in D.C. And I think, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you kind of what the most important thing to watch now is, because sometimes presidential politics is a bit of a distraction from what's really going on in Congress and in D.C. So what are you really keeping your eyes on when it comes to this battle to, I guess, advocate for crypto and make sure that more intelligent policy positions are formed to protect it here in the U.S.? What are you watching?
Yeah, I think everyone was shocked to see the flurry of activity that happened in May with, as you mentioned, Zach, we had the repeal of SAB 121 move all the way through Congress to the Oval Office, where unfortunately it was vetoed by President Biden. And then we had the market structure bill, the Fit for the 21st Century Act, that moved through the House at the end of May. And now everyone's asking, well, what's next? Where does Congress go from here? We are seeing a flurry of activity in the Senate since that Fit vote to say, okay, we heard from the House, 71 Democrats joining almost all Republicans saying we need clear rules of the road for this digital asset market. We need to make sure that the jurisdictional lines are drawn between the SEC, everyone's favorite regulator, and the CFTC. And we need to make sure that there's clarity for issuers, for exchanges and platforms, and for consumers and investors. And so the Senate, I think, saw that Fit vote as a mandate. We need to act, and we need to act quickly. And so we have several Senate efforts at play here. You've got Lummis Gillibrand, who have truly been the leaders on trying to create crypto clarity through legislation for years now. They've got their Responsible Financial Innovation Act that they're trying to move forward. We have new actors that are jumping on the train saying, hey, we want to help move crypto forward through the legislative process, like J.D. Vance, who's also in the running for vice president under former President Trump. J.D. Vance is looking to introduce his own market structure bill that resembles FIT. And then you've got the Senate Ag Committee, where Chairman Debbie Stabenow and Ranking Member John Boozman are trying to move their own bill. So you've got three different work streams at play here in the Senate because everyone is excited by the potential and the momentum, and they want to move market structure. So it looks like a lot of market structure activity is happening. Hopefully we get some of these bills introduced before the August recess, where it does get a little sleepy in D.C., and then we can come back post-August refreshed, not sweating as much as we are in D.C. right now, and try to move one of these market structure bills.
Yeah, I do want to ask you about the potential VP pick, too, because you mentioned J.D. Vance, and you mentioned kind of the likelihood of him being potentially the pick. I don't know if you've kind of weighed the odds. It sounds like you mentioned there that he might be a pro-crypto choice. When it comes to that, people sleep on the vice president role a lot. Shout out Dick Cheney, though, showing everyone that, hey, look, it's not fully a waste of time if you really own the office. But, I mean, when you look at it, Cody, what do you think would be the most pro-crypto pick here to maybe prove again that President Trump is indeed thinking with crypto top of mind?
Well, it's funny. I'm looking at the names you have on the screen here. You look at J.D. Vance, you look at Vivek, you look at Byron Donalds, Tim Scott. These are all vocal crypto champions, folks that have not just talked the talk and have not just been spouting out, hey, I'm pro crypto since Trump got involved in May, but folks who have spent years advocating for this industry by introducing legislation, by bringing it up at congressional hearings, by putting Gary Gensler's feet to the fire. Another name I would throw in there is Senator Bill Hagerty from Tennessee, who sat with former President Trump at a roundtable with the Bitcoin miners just a few weeks ago in Mar-a-Lago. All of these top candidates for vice president have favorable positions on crypto. And I think that shows that how much influence this industry is having in educating, and how the party is starting to see crypto as a real issue that they need to lead on, and that they need to make sure that the United States leads on. And so I think that whatever one of these candidates eventually gets picked by former President Trump to be the vice president on the top of the ticket shows that they will be an influential voice on crypto, and that's a great thing for the industry. So I'm not sure who's it going to be. JD Vance has great odds. Again, I throw in Bill Hagerty in there, Byron Donalds, Tim Scott, all great picks and leaders for this industry, and have been for years. And I would be excited if I'm in the crypto industry to see a ticket with one of their names attached to President Trump.
All right, well, we'll be watching for who exactly it is. And I feel like, again, just to hammer home the point that all of this is happening so quickly and so intensely, I don't know how you reacted to this report, but it seems like it confirmed kind of some rumors we at Coinage had heard swirling as well. But Axios reporting that President Trump is in talks to attend Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville coming up after the debate. The same day that was announced, or at least reported by Axios, you had Bitcoin essentially falling off about like 6% when we were talking about other things going on. But if you had told me that potentially one of the leading presidential candidates here in the U.S. was going to be attending a Bitcoin conference in 2024 a year ago, I would have been like, what the hell happened to crypto in 2024? But that's kind of where we're at. And I wonder how big of a deal, if that is indeed true, if it does happen, you have Trump out there at Bitcoin 2024. I mean, would you have expected that?
Oh, absolutely not. I can't sit here and say, even a month or two ago, I would have never thought that. Now, you are seeing some of those vice presidential candidates that we talked about just a minute ago are already confirmed to be speaking at Bitcoin Nashville, like Vivek, like Bill Hagerty from Tennessee. And so I think the fact that we're even sitting here talking about that the former president of the United States and the Republican leader could be speaking at a Bitcoin conference in 2024 is a testament to how far we've come. If I had to guess, I think it's likely that former President Trump is there. There is, and I can't stress this enough, there is a huge population of single issue crypto voters. And it is a testament to the Trump campaign to recognize that early. Again, I am not naive that I think that the reason that former President Trump got involved here was almost solely political. However, the more and more that we can continue to see him speak to the industry, that we can get him to events like Bitcoin, and the more and more pressure and publicly speaking that he can make about this industry is great for the entire industry. I'm not worried that it's going to become partisan. I'm just glad that it's becoming a national issue, and that's where we are today. So it's remarkable that he may be speaking, and we're even talking about this at Bitcoin Nashville, but I think he'll be there.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see it come center stage as we opened with. And I suppose, too, you mentioned the weight of all of the things that happened under the Biden administration now kind of coming home to roost as we approach the election day. And there was a clip, actually, recently, SEC Chair Gary Gensler was asked about all of that. You had Mark Cuban coming out and saying that there's a chance he himself could cost President Biden the election. We heard similar sentiment, perhaps unsurprisingly, from Ripple's CEO, Brad Garlinghouse, essentially parroting the same thought. But do want to play how he reacted to that when he was asked about it during a Bloomberg interview. Take a listen and we'll get your reaction on the other side.
Mark Cuban has actually said that you, Mr. Gensler, could, quote, literally cost Joe Biden the election. What's your response to this?
I'm going to be easy with you, Maria. I don't speak about elections.
Look, he went on to answer that, again, he's just doing his job. He has rules. He thinks the rules are clear. I think you and I and everyone else in crypto would probably disagree with those rules being clear. I almost felt bad for him. But, I mean, how true do you think some of that is, the sentiment that perhaps Gary Gensler could actually be moving the needle in this election?
Well, I'm trying not to roll my eyes at that clip. But I don't think Gary Gensler will be, the sole reason or the sole indicator in terms of how this election goes, but I do believe he's a microcosm of it, because I do believe crypto will be a huge influence on this election. And again, if you asked me that a few months ago, I would have definitely not thought that, and I would have said myself sounds crazy right now. But Gary Gensler's inability to accept that this technology is here to stay, and his efforts to regulate the industry through enforcement and to make sure that this technology goes overseas and U.S. jobs and tax revenue are going to other jurisdictions like Singapore and Dubai and the UK has been really detrimental to the entire Democratic Party and to the Biden administration. And so I think Gary Gensler's actions leading the SEC have hurt the Biden administration's point of view on digital assets, and it's hurt the public's perception of how the Biden administration treats digital assets, and I think that will have an influence on the election. So I don't want to give Gensler the credit where he could be the one who is swinging an election, but I believe his actions have definitely done damage to the Biden administration and the Biden campaign's re-election chances.
Well, I think to further the point too, right? Let's use some real data now out there in this election cycle as well, because you had Jamal Bowman. I never really know. You had him losing one of the key Democratic reps in New York, looking at crypto and I think the influence on politics. I'm looking at an article right now from Cointelegraph talking about one of the big super PACs as we've been looking at them. Fairshake spent I think a few $1 million on this race in basically opposition to his campaign, and of course he lost in that race. And so I wonder, there's a lot of things you can take from that. You can take from it that, obviously currying crypto's favor is going to help you in these local races, or maybe it's nothing to do with crypto at all. But regardless, there is one true fact there, and it's that Fairshake has now amassed a huge war chest, as a lot of crypto advocacy groups have. I mean, is this a microcosm maybe perhaps of how important crypto has become, maybe proof to your point that this is something you can't avoid in any election? Or is it all perhaps maybe going a bit too far to say that crypto is kind of now controlling a lot of these races?
I think it's the former. I think crypto now for the first time, and it's a nascent industry, but for the first time is showing its political muscle. That it is a bad policy position, if you're any politician out there, to just come out with the view that I'm anti-crypto without any substance behind you. And we've seen it with Jamal Bowman. We saw it with Katie Porter, who is running a Senate race in California. We've seen it with a lot of candidates now, that if you're coming out and you're saying, hey, I'm anti-crypto without any substance behind that, and you believe that this industry is a fad and you can ban it out of existence and send it overseas, you're going to get hurt politically by that. Whether it's the money coming in or it's the voters saying, hey, that doesn't make sense, that this technology could be the wave of the future. Again, I don't think crypto is controlling election. It's definitely not going to be the only issue that dictates whether a candidate wins or loses, but it will have an impact. And some of these elections that could be swayed or won by a few hundred or a few thousand or even a few million votes, if you're coming out anti-crypto, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because on the other side, Latimer hasn't necessarily made a lot of public statements about crypto, but Bowman certainly, in all the votes that we discussed earlier on in this chat, Cody, whether it's Fit 21 or the Saab 121 repeal, or even, I think, what was the other one? I guess the CBDC Anti-Surveillance Act, which would prevent kind of the any idea of a U.S. CBDC, voted against all those. And so not exactly a very pro-crypto stance. In fact, perhaps maybe the strongest one you could have anti-crypto. And so very interesting to see that race shape up the way that it did. Regardless, just to wrap everything up, as you kind of step back and think about 2024, we asked this to your compadre, Perianne Boring, just a few weeks ago. But I'm curious to see what you're focused on when it comes to everything beyond Trump and Biden, because of course we're going to get that this week. But beyond it, the races that you're watching in particular that could go the same way that we just saw play out in New York, where Fairshake does play an outsized political role in all this, where are you seeing maybe some of that influence start to mount when it comes to very, very important elections around the U.S.?
I'm watching the U.S. Senate. I'm watching the tip of the spear, the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, Sherrod Brown, Democrat from Ohio, who has been anti-crypto and has aligned himself with the Elizabeth Warren anti-crypto army. He is up for re-election against Bernie Moreno, a Republican candidate who is very pro-crypto. I'm looking at Montana, where John Tester, who's a senator that also sits on the Senate Banking Committee and has also been anti-crypto, is against a pro-crypto Republican candidate in Tim Sheehy. I'm looking at how political issues such as crypto are shaping these Senate elections and how they're really going to make a dent down ballot. Crypto is here to stay. And whether it's Fair Shake getting involved or some of these other advocacy groups getting involved, and it's the money or it's just the grassroots voter interest, they're starting to make Senate candidates, House candidates, school board candidates, and candidates for the Oval Office start to take a position one way or the other on crypto. And I'm looking forward to seeing that go through November and beyond. This is just the beginning, and I think it's a really great thing for the crypto industry that it is now a political position that every candidate has to top out. But I'm really focused on those Senate races: Ohio, Montana, Pennsylvania, Nevada. There's quite a few of them that could be swayed by crypto and change the landscape of the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to watch how quickly this has all really been heating up in not just, again, D.C., but around the country, as almost every race is now, in some respects, a crypto race, especially as it becomes such a huge talking point here in politics. Can't thank you enough for coming on, though, man. We got to have you back on soon to discuss all of these things as they continue to chat. We'll be watching the debate. In fact, even I think Stand With Crypto, another advocacy group, hosting a few different watch parties around the country. I'll be going to one in New York with the Web3 Familia, co-hosting that one. But Cody Carbone, Digital Chamber Chief Policy Officer, can't thank you enough for the time, man. Thanks again for coming on Coinage.
Yeah, thanks so much, Zach. Thanks for having me.